Marcus Thompson adjusted his worn baseball cap as he walked through the quiet suburban neighborhood with Rex, his German Shepherd companion. The evening air was cool, and streetlights cast long shadows on the empty sidewalks. Marcus had been walking this same route for 3 months now, ever since he returned from his deployment overseas. The routine helped calm his restless mind and gave Rex the exercise he needed. Rex wasn't just any dog. He was Marcus's partner during 2 tours in Afghanistan, trained to detect explosives and protect his unit. When Marcus was discharged due to a leg injury from an IED blast, Rex was retired from service too. The military allowed Marcus to adopt his 4-legged battle buddy, and they had been inseparable ever since. As they turned onto Maple Street, Marcus noticed something unusual. 3 young men were standing near the bus stop, but something about their body language made him alert. His military training kicked in automatically. One was pacing back and forth, another kept looking around nervously, and the third was talking on his phone in hushed tones. Marcus slowed his pace, keeping his distance but staying watchful. Rex sensed the tension and moved closer to his handler's side. The dog's ears perked up and his muscles tensed slightly. After years of working together, they could read each other's signals perfectly. The 3 men appeared to be in their early 20s. They wore dark hoodies and kept their faces partially hidden. Marcus noticed one of them had something metallic in his hand that caught the streetlight. His heart rate increased as he recognized the signs of trouble brewing. Suddenly, a young woman appeared from around the corner, walking alone toward the bus stop. She was probably in her mid-20s, wearing scrubs that suggested she was coming home from a late shift at the hospital. She had earbuds in and seemed completely unaware of the potential danger ahead. Marcus felt his protective instincts surge. He had seen too much violence overseas to stand by and watch innocent people get hurt. He quickened his pace, staying in the shadows but moving closer to the scene. Rex matched his movement perfectly, both of them operating like the trained team they had always been. The woman reached the bus stop and sat down on the bench, still listening to music through her earbuds. The 3 men exchanged glances and began to close in on her position. Marcus could see their intentions were not good. One of the men approached the woman from behind while the other 2 positioned themselves to block any escape routes. The woman finally noticed them when the first man grabbed her purse strap. She screamed and tried to hold on to her belongings, but she was clearly outnumbered and overpowered. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Rex, with me," he commanded quietly, and both of them moved into action. Years of combat experience and training took over as they approached the scene with tactical precision. The lead attacker was pulling hard on the woman's purse while she struggled to keep hold of it. The second man was reaching into his pocket, likely for a weapon, while the third kept watch. None of them noticed the Marine and his K-9 approaching from their blind spot. Marcus used hand signals to direct Rex to circle around to the left, while he approached from the right. The coordination was flawless, just like it had been during countless missions overseas. Rex moved silently through the shadows, positioning himself for maximum effect. When they were both in position, Marcus called out in his commanding military voice, "Let her go now." The 3 attackers spun around in surprise, not expecting any interference. The woman used the distraction to break free and run several yards away before turning back to see what was happening. The leader of the group, a tall, thin man with tattoos on his neck, sneered at Marcus. "Mind your own business, old man. Walk away before you get hurt." He pulled a knife from his jacket and held it in a threatening manner. Marcus remained calm, his military training keeping him focused. "I'm giving you one chance to walk away. Take it." Rex emerged from the shadows beside him, teeth bared and ready to attack on command. The sight of the large, trained German Shepherd made all 3 men step back nervously. But the leader was either too proud or too stupid to back down. "It's just one guy and a dog. We can take them," he told his companions. The second attacker pulled out what looked like a small bat or club, while the third man reached for something in his back pocket. Marcus assessed the situation quickly. 3 opponents, at least 2 weapons visible, 1 potential victim to protect, and limited space to maneuver. He had been in worse situations during his military service, but this time he had Rex as his only backup, instead of a full squad. The standoff lasted only a few seconds before the leader made his move. He lunged forward with the knife, aiming for Marcus's chest. But Marcus was ready. He sidestepped the attack and grabbed the man's wrist. using his combat training to disarm him quickly. At the same moment, Rex launched himself at the second attacker, knocking him to the ground before he could use his weapon. The dog's training was evident as he controlled the threat without causing permanent damage, just as he had been taught in the military. The third attacker hesitated, seeing his companions neutralized so quickly. Marcus maintained control of the leader while keeping his eyes on the remaining threat. "Your friends need help," he said calmly. "I suggest you call an ambulance and then disappear before the police arrive." But the night was far from over, and Marcus had no idea that his actions would attract attention from some very powerful people who had been watching from the shadows. The third attacker dropped whatever he was holding and ran without looking back. Marcus maintained his grip on the leader while Rex kept the second man pinned to the ground, growling low but not biting. The German Shepherd's training was perfect. He could control threats without causing unnecessary harm. The woman in scrubs had pulled out her phone and was already calling 911. "Thank you so much," she called out to Marcus, her voice shaking. "I thought they were going to hurt me." Marcus nodded toward her while keeping his attention on the two men he and Rex had subdued. The leader was still struggling, but Marcus's combat experience made it easy to keep him controlled. "Stay back until the police arrive," he told the woman. "Make sure to tell them exactly what happened." Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air. 2 police cars arrived almost simultaneously, their red and blue lights painting the scene in bright colors. 4 officers jumped out, hands on their weapons as they assessed the situation. "Police! Nobody move!" shouted the first officer. Marcus slowly raised his free hand while maintaining his hold on the attacker. Rex immediately sat but remained alert, his eyes fixed on the man beneath him. "I'm Marcus Thompson, retired Marine," Marcus called out clearly. "My dog and I stopped these men from robbing this woman. The victim is over there and she called you." The lead officer, a veteran named Sergeant Rodriguez, quickly took control of the scene. He recognized the professional way Marcus had handled the situation and could see Rex's military bearing. "Release the suspect slowly and step back with your dog," Rodriguez instructed. Marcus complied, signaling Rex to release as well. The 2 attackers were quickly handcuffed and placed in separate police cars. The woman gave her statement, praising Marcus and Rex for saving her from what could have been a much worse situation. "I've seen a lot of good Samaritans," Sergeant Rodriguez told Marcus as they finished the paperwork, "but that was some serious tactical work. You and your dog make quite a team." Marcus shrugged modestly. "Rex and I served together overseas. Old habits, I guess." What Marcus didn't know was that the entire incident had been witnessed by more than just the intended victim. Across the street, in a dark sedan with tinted windows, 2 men in expensive suits had watched everything unfold. They had been conducting their own business in the neighborhood when the commotion started. The man in the passenger seat spoke quietly into a secure phone. "Boss, you need to hear about something that just happened. We found someone interesting." He described the incident in detail, emphasizing Marcus's professional handling of the situation and Rex's obvious military training. The voice on the other end of the phone listened carefully before responding. "Get me everything you can about this Marine. Full background check, service record, current situation. I want to know by tomorrow morning." After the police finished their investigation and left with the 2 arrested men, Marcus and Rex continued their walk home. The adrenaline was wearing off, and Marcus felt the familiar ache in his injured leg. Rex stayed close, sensing his handler's fatigue. Their small apartment was in a converted garage behind an older house. Marcus had rented it when he first came to town because it was cheap and had a yard for Rex. The landlord, Mrs. Chen, was a kind elderly woman who appreciated having a veteran nearby for security. As they settled in for the night, Marcus reflected on what had happened. He wasn't looking for trouble, but he couldn't stand by and watch innocent people get hurt. That's just who he was, shaped by years of military service and a strong moral code. Rex lay down beside Marcus's chair, but his ears remained alert. The dog sensed that something had changed, though he couldn't identify what. His years of training told him to stay watchful, even when they were safely home. Meanwhile, across town in a luxurious penthouse office, the background check on Marcus Thompson was already underway. The man who had ordered the investigation was Vincent Castellano, a powerful businessman with interests in security, real estate, and several other ventures. He was always on the lookout for talented individuals who might be useful to his organization. Castellano's assistant knocked on his office door. "Sir, the preliminary report on the Marine is ready." She handed him a file containing Marcus's military service record, commendations, and current living situation. Castellano read through the documents with growing interest. Marcus had served with distinction in some of the most dangerous areas of Afghanistan. He had been awarded multiple medals for valor and had a spotless record until his medical discharge. His K-9 partner Rex had been equally decorated, with a record of successful missions and lives saved. "Interesting," Castellano murmured to himself. "A man of principle, who knows how to handle himself in dangerous situations." He made a note to have more detailed information gathered about Marcus's current circumstances and financial situation. The next morning, Marcus woke early as was his habit from military life. He made coffee and took Rex out for their morning routine. Everything seemed normal, but Rex appeared more alert than usual, constantly scanning their surroundings. As they returned from their walk, Mrs. Chen was waiting by the front gate. "Marcus, dear, you have visitors," she said with a concerned expression. "3 very expensive cars are parked outside. The men asked for you specifically." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. In his experience, unexpected visitors in expensive cars usually meant trouble. He signaled Rex to stay alert and walked toward the front of the property. 3 black Rolls-Royce vehicles were indeed parked outside, their chrome gleaming in the morning sun. Several men in dark suits stood nearby, but they didn't look threatening. In fact, they seemed respectful, almost deferential. One of the men stepped forward as Marcus approached. "Mr. Thompson, my name is James Mitchell. My employer would like to speak with you about last night's incident. Would you be willing to accompany us for a brief meeting?" Marcus studied the man carefully. Mitchell was well-dressed and polite, but there was an underlying strength about him that suggested military or law enforcement background. "Who's your employer and what's this about?" "Mr. Vincent Castellano would like to thank you personally for your actions last night," Mitchell replied. "He believes you might be interested in a business proposition." The name Castellano rang a bell, but Marcus couldn't place it immediately. He was curious but cautious. "I'll need to bring my dog," he said finally. Mitchell smiled. "Mr. Castellano was hoping you would say that. He's very interested in meeting Rex as well." Marcus hesitated for a moment, weighing his options. The appearance of 3 luxury cars the morning after his encounter with the street thugs couldn't be a coincidence. Rex pressed against his leg, alert but not showing signs of immediate danger. The dog's calm demeanor helped Marcus make his decision. "Give me 5 minutes," Marcus said to Mitchell. He went back inside to grab his jacket and tell Mrs. Chen he would be gone for a while. She watched nervously from her window as he returned with Rex and approached the waiting vehicles. Mitchell opened the door of the middle Rolls-Royce, revealing a spacious interior with cream leather seats. Marcus and Rex climbed in, and Mitchell took the seat across from them. The other 2 cars fell into formation as they pulled away from the curb, one leading and one following. "Where are we going?" Marcus asked as they drove through increasingly upscale neighborhoods. "Mr. Castellano's private office downtown," Mitchell replied. "It's about a 20-minute drive. He prefers to meet people in person when discussing important matters." Marcus used the time to observe his surroundings and the man sitting across from him. Mitchell was professional and courteous, but Marcus could see the telltale signs of someone with serious training. His posture, the way he scanned the environment, and the slight bulge under his jacket all suggested he was more than just a driver. The convoy pulled up to a gleaming glass tower in the heart of the business district. Marcus had seen the building many times but never paid much attention to it. Now he noticed the discreet security measures, cameras, reinforced entry points, and guards who tried to blend in but were obvious to his trained eye. They took a private elevator to the top floor, where the doors opened directly into a luxurious reception area. The view of the city through floor-to-ceiling windows was spectacular. Mitchell led them through a set of double doors into an impressive office that seemed to take up half the floor. Vincent Castellano stood behind a massive mahogany desk, but he immediately walked around it to greet his visitors personally. He was a man in his late 50s, well-built and impeccably dressed, with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for coming," Castellano said, extending his hand. "And you must be Rex." The businessman knelt down slightly to let Rex sniff his hand before gently patting the dog's head. Rex remained alert but didn't show any signs of aggression. "Please sit down." Castellano gestured to comfortable chairs arranged around a coffee table. "Can I offer you something to drink? Coffee, water?" Marcus accepted a cup of coffee while Rex lay down beside his chair, positioned so he could watch both Castellano and the office entrance. "Mr. Mitchell said you wanted to thank me for something. I'm not sure what that would be about." Castellano smiled and pulled out a tablet, which he turned toward Marcus. Security camera footage showed the previous night's incident from multiple angles. Marcus realized they had been watching the entire time. "My people witnessed your intervention last night," Castellano explained. "That young woman, Sarah Martinez, works as a nurse at City General Hospital. She saves lives every day, and last night you saved hers." Marcus watched the footage with professional interest. The cameras had captured everything, including tactical details he hadn't even been aware of during the action. "Anyone would have done the same thing," he said modestly. "No, Mr. Thompson, they wouldn't have," Castellano replied firmly. "Most people would have called 911 and hoped for the best. You assessed the situation, developed a tactical response, and executed it perfectly with your partner. That takes training, courage, and character." Castellano leaned forward in his chair. "I've read your military file. 2 tours in Afghanistan, multiple commendations, an exemplary service record until your injury. You and Rex saved countless lives overseas." Marcus felt a familiar weight in his chest when his service was mentioned. "That was a long time ago. We're both retired now. Retirement doesn't erase skill or character," Castellano said gently. "I run several businesses that require security services. Not the usual shopping mall guard work. I mean real security for people who face genuine threats." The businessman stood and walked to the window overlooking the city. "I protect executives, their families, valuable assets, and sometimes people who just need help. Last night showed me that you and Rex still have something valuable to offer." Marcus remained silent, processing what he was hearing. Rex sensed his handler's tension and shifted closer to his chair. "I'm offering you a job, Mr. Thompson, head of personal security for my organization. The salary would be substantial, more than enough to get you out of that garage apartment and into a place worthy of a decorated veteran." Castellano returned to his seat and pulled out a folder. "Your current financial situation isn't great. You're living on disability payments and working part-time at a hardware store. Rex deserves better than dog food from the discount bin." The comment about Rex's food hit home. Marcus had been cutting corners wherever he could, and Rex's diet had indeed suffered. The proud Marine hated accepting charity, but his partner's well-being mattered more than his pride. "What exactly would this job involve?" Marcus asked carefully. "Protection services for clients who face serious threats, corporate executives, witnesses in important cases, sometimes their family members. You would have a team working under you, all professionals with military or law enforcement backgrounds." Castellano slid the folder across the table. "The starting salary is in there, along with benefits including full medical coverage for both you and Rex. There's also a housing allowance that would get you into a proper place with a yard." Marcus opened the folder and his eyes widened at the numbers. The salary was more than triple what he had been making at all his part-time jobs combined. The benefits package was better than what he had received in the military. "There are some conditions," Castellano continued. "Complete loyalty to the organization and its clients, absolute discretion about everything you see or hear, and you would occasionally be asked to handle situations that require your particular skill set." The last point made Marcus pause. "What kind of situations?" Castellano met his gaze directly. "Sometimes bad people threaten good people, Mr. Thompson. Sometimes the legal system isn't enough to protect the innocent. When that happens, people like you make the difference between life and death." Marcus looked down at Rex, who was watching him intently. The dog seemed to sense this was an important moment in their lives. After months of struggling financially and feeling useless, the offer was tempting. "I need time to think about it," Marcus said finally. "Of course." Castellano stood and walked to his desk. "Take all the time you need, but don't take too long. I have a situation developing that could use your expertise." He handed Marcus a business card with only a phone number on it. "Call me when you've made your decision." "And Mr. Thompson, last night you proved that some people still believe in doing the right thing. The world needs more people like you." The ride back to his apartment gave Marcus time to think. Mitchell remained respectfully quiet during the journey, sensing that his passenger needed space to process what had just happened. Rex lay beside Marcus, occasionally looking up at his handler's face as if trying to read his thoughts. Back at the garage apartment, Marcus sat at his small kitchen table with the folder Castellano had given him. The salary figure seemed almost too good to be true. With that kind of money, he could afford a real apartment with a proper yard for Rex. He could buy quality food, pay for Rex's veterinary care without worrying about the cost, and maybe even start saving for the future. But something about the offer bothered him. Castellano's final comments about situations that require your particular skill set suggested this wasn't just a regular security job. Marcus had seen enough of the world to know that legitimate businesses didn't usually need the kind of skills he and Rex possessed. Rex nudged his hand, reminding him it was time for their afternoon walk. Marcus folded the papers and put them away. Sometimes physical movement helped him think more clearly, a habit he had developed during his military service. As they walked through the neighborhood, Marcus found himself paying more attention to details than usual. Was that sedan following them? Were those men across the street watching him? Castellano's offer had awakened his old instincts, making him hyper-aware of his surroundings. They stopped at the park where Marcus often threw a ball for Rex. The German Shepherd loved these play sessions, and watching his partner enjoy himself always lifted Marcus's spirits. But today, even Rex seemed distracted, frequently stopping his play to scan the area. "What do you think, boy?" Marcus asked quietly as they sat on a bench. "Should we trust this Castellano guy?" Rex looked at him with intelligent brown eyes but offered no answers. That evening, Marcus did something he rarely allowed himself to do. He researched Vincent Castellano online. What he found was interesting but incomplete. Castellano appeared to be a legitimate businessman with interests in security services, real estate, and import-export operations. There were photos of him at charity events, news articles about his business successes, and mentions of his support for veteran causes. But Marcus's military experience had taught him to look for what wasn't there as much as what was. There were gaps in Castellano's history, periods where he seemed to disappear from public view. His businesses were successful, but their exact nature was vaguely described. Most telling was the complete absence of any negative coverage. In Marcus's experience, truly legitimate businessmen usually had at least some controversy or criticism attached to their names. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Sergeant Rodriguez, the police officer from the night before, knocked on Marcus's door around 10 o'clock. "Hope I'm not disturbing you," Rodriguez said. "I wanted to follow up on last night's incident and ask you a few questions." Marcus invited him in and offered coffee, which Rodriguez accepted gratefully. Rex remembered the officer from the previous night and remained calm but watchful. "Those two guys you and Rex took down," Rodriguez began. "They're not talking much, but we got enough to charge them with attempted robbery. The third one who ran got away, but we'll probably pick him up soon." Marcus nodded. "Good. That nurse didn't deserve what they were planning to do to her." Rodriguez studied Marcus carefully. "Here's the interesting part. Both of the arrested men have serious criminal records: assault, armed robbery, drug dealing. These aren't kids making a bad choice. They're dangerous career criminals." The sergeant leaned forward. "What I can't figure out is how they went down so easily. I've been a cop for 15 years, and I've seen trained officers struggle with guys like that. But you and your dog handled them like they were amateurs." Marcus shrugged. "Military training, it stays with you." "Maybe," Rodriguez said. "But I'm also curious about something else. We had reports of some expensive cars in your neighborhood yesterday morning. Black luxury vehicles with tinted windows. You know anything about that?" The question hit closer to home than Marcus was comfortable with. "I might have had some visitors. Why?" Rodriguez pulled out a small notebook. "Those cars were spotted in 3 other neighborhoods this week. Each time they appeared after some kind of incident involving criminal activity. It's probably nothing, but my detective instincts are telling me there might be a pattern." Marcus felt his pulse quicken but kept his expression neutral. "What kind of pattern?" "The kind where someone with resources is keeping track of criminal activity in the city," Rodriguez replied. "Look, I don't know what those visitors offered you, but be careful. Sometimes people with that kind of money want things that aren't exactly legal." After Rodriguez left, Marcus felt more conflicted than ever. The police officer's warning confirmed his own suspicions about Castellano, but it also reminded him of his current situation. He was barely making ends meet, Rex wasn't getting proper care, and his military skills were going to waste in part-time civilian jobs. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. The caller ID showed only a number, the same number on Castellano's business card. "Mr. Thompson, this is Vincent Castellano. I hope you've had time to consider our discussion." Marcus took a breath. "I'm still thinking about it." "I understand your caution," Castellano replied. "But I have a situation that's developed, and I could really use your expertise. There's a family being threatened, and the police can't provide adequate protection." "What kind of threats?" "The wife of a businessman who testified against some dangerous people. The family has been receiving death threats, and yesterday someone tried to break into their home while the children were inside." Marcus felt his protective instincts stir. "What about private security companies?" "I've tried them," Castellano said. "But this requires someone with your background. These aren't ordinary criminals we're dealing with. The family needs someone who understands real tactical situations." Castellano paused before continuing. "I'm not asking you to commit to the full job offer yet. Consider this a trial run. 1 week of protection services and I'll pay you $5,000. If you decide this isn't for you after that, no hard feelings." $5,000 would solve Marcus's immediate financial problems and ensure Rex got proper food and medical care for months. It would also give him a chance to see what Castellano's operation was really about. "Who is this family?" Marcus asked. "The Hendersons." Tom Henderson was the accountant who discovered his company was being used to launder money for organized crime. When he cooperated with federal investigators, he put his wife and 2 young children at risk. The details made the situation more compelling. Marcus could relate to someone who had done the right thing and was now paying the price for it. "I'll need complete operational control," Marcus said finally. "No interference from your people, and I choose how to handle the security arrangements." "Agreed," Castellano replied immediately. "Can you start today? The family is staying at a safe house, but I don't think it's secure enough." Marcus looked at Rex, who was watching him intently. The dog seemed to sense that another important decision was being made. "Send me the address," Marcus said. "Rex and I will be there this afternoon." The safe house was located in a quiet residential area, about 30 minutes outside the city. Marcus arrived in his old pickup truck, which looked out of place among the well-maintained suburban homes. He had spent the drive thinking about tactical approaches and potential security weaknesses. The house itself was a 2-story colonial with a large yard and good sight lines in all directions. Marcus parked across the street and spent several minutes observing the property before approaching. Rex sat alert beside him, also scanning the area. James Mitchell met them at the front door. "The family is inside," he said quietly. "They're scared, especially the children. The mother, Jennifer Henderson, hasn't slept properly in 3 days." Marcus nodded and followed Mitchell inside. The house was nicely furnished, but felt like a temporary shelter rather than a home. Tom Henderson stood up as they entered the living room. He was a thin man in his early 40s with tired eyes and nervous hands. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for coming," Henderson said, shaking Marcus's hand. "I know this is dangerous, but I couldn't live with myself if I hadn't spoken up about what I saw." "You did the right thing," Marcus replied. "Now let's make sure you and your family stay safe while the legal process runs its course." Jennifer Henderson appeared from the
kitchen with 2 children, a boy about 8 years old,
and a girl who couldn't have been more than 6. Both children immediately noticed Rex and asked if they could pet him. "Rex is very gentle with children," Marcus assured their mother. "He's been trained to protect, not harm." The children's faces lit up as Rex allowed them to pat his head and scratch behind his ears. Marcus spent the next hour conducting a security assessment of the house and surrounding area. The location had some advantages: good visibility, multiple exit routes, and helpful neighbors. But there were also significant vulnerabilities. "The security system is basic," he told Mitchell. "Motion sensors and door alarms, but nothing sophisticated. The yard has too many hiding places, and there are 3 different ways someone could approach the house without being seen." Marcus pulled out a notebook and began sketching improvements. We need better lighting around the perimeter, security cameras at all access points, and reinforced locks on doors and windows. The family also needs an emergency escape plan with multiple options. While Mitchell made phone calls to arrange the security upgrades, Marcus sat down with the Henderson family to discuss their daily routines and safety protocols. The most important thing is that you don't try to maintain normal activities, he explained. No trips to the store, no visits with friends, no regular schedules that someone could predict. Tom Henderson looked frustrated. How long will this go on? The kids are supposed to start school next week. That depends on how quickly the federal case moves forward, Marcus replied honestly. But your testimony is going to put some dangerous people in prison. They won't give up easily. That evening, after the security improvements were installed, Marcus established a watch rotation with Rex. The dog's hearing and instincts were better than any electronic system, and his presence alone would deter most potential attackers. Around midnight, Rex's behavior changed. The dog went from relaxed alertness to focused attention, his ears pricked forward and his body tense. Marcus immediately went to the window and scanned the street using night vision binoculars. 2 cars were parked in locations that hadn't been occupied earlier. Both had their engines running but their lights off. Marcus counted at least 4 figures moving in the shadows near the property line. He quickly activated the emergency communication system Castellano had provided. This is Thompson. We have multiple hostiles approaching the safe house. Need immediate backup. Backup is 10 minutes out, came the reply. Can you hold until then? Marcus looked at the family huddled together in the living room and made his decision. We'll hold. He positioned the Henderson family in the most secure part of the house, an interior hallway with no windows and solid walls on all sides. Stay down and don't move until I tell you, he instructed. Rex took up position at the front of the house while Marcus covered the back. The attackers were professionals, moving with coordination and discipline. This wasn't a simple intimidation attempt. They were planning something serious. The first breach attempt came at the rear sliding door. Marcus watched through the security camera as 2 men worked to defeat the reinforced lock. He waited until they were committed to their approach before taking action. Moving quickly and quietly, Marcus positioned himself at the door just as the first attacker stepped inside. Years of combat training took over as he disabled the intruder with a chokehold that left the man unconscious but alive. The second attacker realized something was wrong when his partner didn't respond to radio calls. He entered more cautiously, weapon drawn, but Rex was waiting. The German Shepherd's attack was swift and precise, knocking the gunman down and disarming him without causing permanent injury. Meanwhile, 2 more attackers were attempting to breach the front door. The reinforced locks held, but Marcus could hear them working with power tools. He moved to intercept them as they finally gained entry. The first man through the door found himself facing a decorated combat veteran who had no intention of letting harm come to the family under his protection. Marcus's military training and Rex's loyal support proved to be more than a match for the would-be attackers. By the time Castellano's backup team arrived, all 4 attackers were unconscious and secured. None of the Henderson family had been harmed, though everyone was shaken by the experience. Castellano himself arrived shortly after his security team. He surveyed the scene with professional interest, noting how Marcus had handled multiple attackers while protecting civilians. Impressive work, he told Marcus. These weren't street thugs. They were professional hitmen with military-grade equipment. Marcus was checking on the family when Castellano approached him privately. The people who sent those men won't give up. The Henderson family needs long-term protection, and frankly, there aren't many people I trust with that kind of responsibility. What are you asking? Marcus replied. I'm asking you to consider the full job offer. Tonight proved that you and Rex are exactly what my organization needs. Marcus looked at Tom Henderson, who was holding his children close while his wife tried to comfort them. These were good people who had done nothing wrong except tell the truth about criminal activity they had witnessed. The family comes first, Marcus said firmly. Whatever else you need from me, their safety is the top priority. Castellano smiled. Mr. Thompson, I believe we understand each other perfectly. As the police arrived to process the arrested attackers, Marcus realized his life had just taken another major turn. The quiet retirement he had imagined for himself and Rex was over, replaced by a return to the kind of high-stakes situations they had faced overseas. But unlike his military service, this time he would have more control over the missions he accepted and the people he protected. And judging by tonight's events, there would be no shortage of people who needed the kind of help only he and Rex could provide. The next morning brought a mix of relief and new challenges. The Henderson family had survived the night, but the attack confirmed that their enemies were serious and well-resourced. Marcus spent the early hours reviewing security footage and coordinating with law enforcement about the arrested attackers. Detective Sarah Walsh from the Federal Bureau of Investigation arrived at the safe house around 9 o'clock. She was a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s who clearly knew her business. Marcus could tell immediately that she was someone who demanded straight answers. "Mr. Thompson, I need to understand exactly what happened here last night," she said, pulling out a recording device. 4 professional hitmen don't just show up at a random safe house. Someone leaked the location. Marcus had been thinking the same thing. The security on this location was compromised. Either someone in law enforcement talked or there's a leak in Mr. Castellano's organization. Detective Walsh raised an eyebrow. "You're working for Vincent Castellano now. That's interesting information. Is there something I should know about my employer?" Marcus asked carefully. "Castellano runs a legitimate security business, but he operates in some gray areas," Walsh replied. "His clients include people who can't or won't use traditional law enforcement protection. Sometimes that means he handles situations that we can't touch officially." She looked at Rex, who was lying near the Henderson children. "Your intervention last night saved lives, but working for Castellano long-term could put you in some difficult positions." Marcus appreciated her honesty. "Right now, my concern is keeping this family safe until the trial is over." "About that," Walsh said. "The main defendant in the money laundering case just made bail. Eduardo Santos has resources, connections, and no intention of going to prison. He's the one who ordered last night's attack." The name Eduardo Santos rang bells for Marcus. He had heard it mentioned in intelligence briefings during his military service. Santos was connected to international criminal organizations with operations spanning multiple countries. "How long until the trial?" Marcus asked. 6 weeks, maybe 8 if there are delays," Walsh replied. "Santos will use every day of that time to try to eliminate the witnesses against him." After the detective left, Marcus called Castellano to discuss the new developments. They arranged to meet at a different location, a private dining room in an upscale restaurant downtown. "Santos is more dangerous than I initially realized," Castellano admitted over lunch. "My intelligence sources indicate he's brought in specialists from outside the country. The attack last night was just the beginning." Marcus cut into his steak while thinking about the implications. The safe house location is blown. The family needs to be moved somewhere more secure. "I have a compound about 2 hours from here," Castellano offered. "Private estate, excellent security, completely off the grid. But it means the family would be isolated for weeks." "Better isolated and alive than accessible and dead," Marcus replied. "But I'll need a full security team. Rex and I can't cover that much ground alone." Castellano smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that. I have 3 other operatives I'd like you to meet. All former military, all people I trust completely." That afternoon, Marcus was introduced to his new team members. Rodriguez was a former Army Ranger who specialized in electronic surveillance and communications. Kim was an ex-Navy SEAL with expertise in weapons and tactical planning. Wilson was a former Air Force Security Forces member who excelled at perimeter defense and logistics. All 3 men were professionals who understood the seriousness of their mission. More importantly, they accepted Marcus's authority without question and showed immediate respect for Rex's capabilities. The move to Castellano's compound took place that evening under cover of darkness. The Henderson family was transported in an armored vehicle while Marcus and his team conducted counter-surveillance to ensure they weren't followed. The compound was impressive, a sprawling estate surrounded by high walls, sophisticated security systems, and natural barriers that made unauthorized approach nearly impossible. The main house was large enough to accommodate the family comfortably, while providing secure working areas for the protection team. "This is like a fortress," Tom Henderson observed as they settled into their new temporary home. "That's the idea," Marcus replied. "Santos can't reach you here no matter what resources he brings to bear." Over the next several days, Marcus and his team established routines and security protocols that would keep the family safe, while maintaining their sanity during the extended isolation. The children were tutored by secure video connection with their regular teachers, Jennifer Henderson was able to continue her work as a graphic designer using encrypted internet connections. Tom Henderson spent his time preparing for his testimony and working with federal prosecutors. Rex adapted to the compound environment quickly, establishing patrol routes and making friends with the Henderson children. The German Shepherd's presence provided comfort to the family while maintaining his professional vigilance. But Marcus knew their enemies weren't giving up. Intelligence reports indicated that Santos was bringing in more resources and planning something significant. The trial was still 5 weeks away and the pressure was building. The first probing attack came on a Tuesday evening. Motion sensors detected movement along the compound's perimeter, followed by attempts to test the electronic security systems. Marcus and his team responded immediately, but the attackers withdrew before making contact. "They're studying our defenses," Rodriguez observed while reviewing the security footage. "Professional reconnaissance, which means they're planning something bigger," Kim added. "We need to be ready for a serious assault," Marcus agreed. He contacted Castellano to request additional resources and authorization to take more aggressive defensive measures. The businessman arrived the next morning with additional equipment and some disturbing news. "Santos has hired a team of mercenaries," Castellano reported. "Former special forces from several different countries, all with combat experience. High sources indicate they're planning a coordinated attack within the next few days." Marcus studied the intelligence reports Castellano provided. The enemy force was larger and better equipped than he had anticipated. "We need to evacuate the family to a different location." "There is no other location that's more secure than this," Castellano replied. "This compound has withstood attacks before. With your team and the additional resources I'm providing, you can hold against anything Santos throws at you." Marcus wasn't entirely convinced, but he also understood that constant movement would be more dangerous than a well-prepared defense. "Then we make our stand here. But if things go badly, the family's safety comes first." "Agreed," Castellano said. "Whatever else happens, the Hendersons must survive to testify." As they prepared for the coming assault, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed in just a few weeks. He had gone from struggling to make ends meet to leading a professional security team in a high-stakes operation against international criminals. Rex seemed to sense the growing tension and stayed closer to Marcus than usual. The dog's military instincts were fully engaged now, just as they had been during their deployments overseas. "Ready for another fight, boy?" Marcus asked quietly as they conducted their evening security check. Rex looked up at him with intelligent eyes that seemed to say he was ready for whatever came next. Together they had faced worse odds in Afghanistan and survived. This time, they were fighting to protect an innocent family rather than strategic objectives, which made the mission even more important to Marcus. The attack would come soon, and when it did, Marcus and his team would be ready. The attack came at dawn on Thursday morning, just as Marcus had predicted. Rex woke him with a low growl at exactly 5:30, 15 minutes before the perimeter alarm started going off. Years of working together had taught Marcus to trust his partner's instincts completely. "All stations, this is Thompson," Marcus spoke into his radio headset. "Rex is alerting. Movement on all sides." "This is it," his team responded immediately. Rodriguez activated the compound's defensive systems, while Kim and Wilson took their assigned positions. The Henderson family was moved to the secure bunker in the basement, a reinforced room with independent communications and life support systems. Through night vision scopes, Marcus counted at least 12 attackers approaching from 3 different directions. They moved with military precision, using coordinated timing and professional tactics. Santos had indeed hired the best mercenaries money could buy. The first wave of attacks targeted the compound's electronic systems. Rodriguez countered their cyber warfare attempts while maintaining communication with local law enforcement and federal authorities. "FBI tactical team is 20 minutes out," he reported. "We need to hold until then." Marcus positioned himself at the main house's strongest defensive position with Rex beside him. The German Shepherd was completely focused, every muscle tensed and ready for action. This was what they had both been trained for. The mercenaries breached the outer perimeter using explosive charges that temporarily disabled sections of the security fence. But Marcus had anticipated this tactic and positioned his team to funnel the attackers into predetermined kill zones. Kim engaged the first group of intruders with precise sniper fire from his elevated position. His military training was evident as he systematically eliminated threats while conserving ammunition. 2 attackers went down immediately, forcing the others to take cover and reassess their approach. Wilson held the eastern approach using the compound's defensive barriers and his own tactical expertise. The attackers quickly learned that this wasn't going to be an easy victory. Every advantage they had expected was being neutralized by professional defenders who understood their own terrain perfectly, but Marcus knew the real test would come when the mercenaries adapted their tactics and brought their full force to bear. These weren't street criminals or amateur gunmen. They were professionals who would learn from their initial failures. The second assault wave came 20 minutes later with greater coordination and heavier weapons. The attackers used grenades and automatic weapons to suppress the defenders while advancing under covering fire. Marcus and Rex were forced to abandon their primary position and fall back to secondary defenses. "They're pushing hard on the north side," Wilson reported over the radio. "I'm taking heavy fire and running low on ammunition." Marcus made a tactical decision that went against conventional defensive doctrine. Instead of continuing to fall back, he and Rex would go on the offensive. "Rodriguez, give me 30 seconds of covering fire. Rex and I are going to flank them." Using a route he had planned during the compound's initial security assessment, Marcus led Rex through a series of concealed positions that brought them behind the attacking force. The element of surprise was their greatest advantage against superior numbers. Rex struck first, taking down the mercenary team's communications specialist with a silent attack that left the man unconscious but alive. Marcus followed immediately, using hand-to-hand combat techniques to neutralize 2 more attackers. Before they realized they were under assault from behind, the confusion this created gave Kim and Wilson the opportunity they needed to regain the initiative. The coordinated counterattack caught the mercenaries off guard and forced them to retreat to defensive positions of their own. But the battle was far from over. Santos's men regrouped quickly and launched a final desperate assault on the main house. Their objective was clear: reach the Henderson family at any cost. Marcus and Rex raced back to defend the house's main entrance, just as the remaining attackers breached the front door. The hallway became a deadly corridor where military training and loyal partnership made the difference between life and death. Rex's attack on the lead gunman saved Marcus from what would have been a fatal shot. The German shepherd's courage and precision allowed Marcus to engage the other attackers with the confidence that his partner was protecting his flanks. The sound of approaching helicopters finally signaled the arrival of federal law enforcement. FBI tactical teams surrounded the compound just as Marcus and Rex finished securing the last of Santos's mercenaries. Detective Walsh was among the first federal agents to enter the compound. She surveyed the scene with professional appreciation for what Marcus and his team had accomplished. 12 professional mercenaries neutralized with no civilian casualties, she observed. "That's exceptional work under any circumstances." The Henderson family emerged from the bunker shaken but unharmed. Tom Henderson shook Marcus's hand with tears in his eyes. "You saved our lives," he said simply. "How can we ever thank you?" "Just tell the truth at the trial," Marcus replied. "Make sure Santos and his organization pay for what they've done." With Santos's mercenary team captured and his resources depleted, the threat to the Henderson family was effectively over. The trial proceeded without further incidents, and Tom Henderson's testimony helped convict Santos on multiple charges of money laundering and conspiracy to commit murder. Castellano offered Marcus a permanent position as head of security for his organization, with a substantial salary and benefits package that would ensure both he and Rex lived comfortably for the rest of their lives. "You've proven yourself beyond any doubt," Castellano told him during their final meeting. "My clients need someone with your skills and integrity." Marcus accepted the position, but with conditions that ensured he would only take assignments that aligned with his moral principles. He and Rex moved into a proper house with a large yard, and Marcus was able to provide his partner with the best food and veterinary care available. 6 months later, Marcus received a letter from Jennifer Henderson, along with photos of her children playing in their backyard. The family had returned to their normal lives, and the children were thriving in school. Jennifer wrote that they thought of Marcus and Rex as guardian angels who had appeared when they needed help most. Rex was lying in a patch of sunlight in their new backyard, when Marcus read the letter aloud to him. The German shepherd's tail wagged slowly, as if he understood that their new life was built on the foundation of protecting innocent people. Marcus folded the letter and scratched behind Rex's ears. "Ready for the next mission, boy?" he asked. Rex looked up at him with the same intelligent, loyal eyes that had seen them through 2 combat deployments and numerous dangerous situations. Together, they had found their purpose again, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The phone rang inside the house. Castellano had another family that needed their help. Another situation where military training and unwavering loyalty would make the difference between life and death. Marcus and Rex headed inside to answer the call, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They had learned that retirement wasn't about age or circumstances, it was about choice. And they had chosen to continue serving, protecting the innocent and standing up to those who would harm good people. Their story was far from over. In fact, it felt like it was just beginning.